Hello and welcome to our weekly Parsha share with the commentary of the Alshich. This week's Parsha is Chayah. And again, to remind you, this is the second year of our Alshich sharing, so there is another Alshich share that you can see from last year's, either in Torah Anytime or on my YouTube channel. This week's share is dedicated for the Refuah Shlema of somebody who's a very, very dear old friend who I recently heard. A family friend who I recently heard is not doing too well in Manchester. Her name, and she should have a refuah shlema, is Brocha Toiva Bas Esther. So Brocha Toiva Bas Esther should have for Banishon a refuah shlema. She is a spectacularly fabulous person. Her husband's a fabulous person as well. They got a tremendous family. All the children, I think I know all of them. They're all outstanding young men, and I don't know the grandchildren, but I have no doubt whatsoever that they follow in the footsteps of the grandmother, the grandfather, and of course their own parents. So, Bracha Tova, Bas Esther should have a refuah shlema. And as usual, if you would like to dedicate the share and for the schus of somebody who needs to get better, or to celebrate the simcha, or for whatever good Jewish reason, as always, there's the email, lots of notes written here to give that. YY@rabbiYY.com, and we'll happily dedicate a share for the person whom you nominate, which takes us to this week's Parsha. This is Parsha. I have to tell you, I'm not sure if I'm going to get into terrible trouble for saying this, but my wife phoned me up just as I was preparing the share about an hour ago, and she said, "Do you mind if I tell you a story?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually preparing the share." She said, "Okay, I'll tell you later." I said, "You know what? Tell me the story." If she'd actually said, "Do you mind if I tell you a story that just happened to me?" I would, of course, listen, but I thought she was going to tell me some story of some sort. She told me the following story. The story is, my wife is a mikveh attendant, and so she, of course, helps ladies get ready, prepare, and make sure that their tefillah is the way it should be, halakhically kosher, etc. And she mentioned tonight that there was in the notes that there was a certain lady, and because ladies have notes because they come regularly, and some women are scared of the water, so it's a professional make, but they do their job very well to make sure that somebody is nervous about the water and going into the pool, etc., that this is taken into account. And so it said that the particular lady was a little bit sensitive about coming to the mikveh because she'd had bad experiences, obviously not in the mikveh my wife works in. Anyway, so afterwards, my wife told me that the lady said, "Can I just remind me of your name?" And so I've told her name. She said, "Yes, of course." And my wife started to say, "Of course." She said, "I just want to tell you that you changed my life completely." And my wife was very surprised. "You've changed my life totally and completely. And I'm very serious," she said. "You see, I haven't been to the mikveh for a very long time, and I waited a very long time to have children. The last time I was at the mikveh, you also looked after me. You were my mikveh attendant, and you gave him the most wonderful bracha that I could ever think of. And indeed, after a long time without becoming pregnant, I had a little baby. And we named the baby after you." So, of course, at that point, my wife was very moved and in tears on the phone, and I must admit, so I was too. So I don't think, I hope you forgive me if a husband has pride in his wife, and I certainly have tonight. But actually, the shir I was preparing, it is, of course, the parsha is about two great Jewish women. It's about Sori Menu, the end of a life, and of course, the sun of one tzaddik or tzedekah doesn't set metaphorically until the son of the next tzaddik to take over, to stand in their place, takes over. So we have Rivka and we have Sarah in the exact same parsha. It was rather appropriate. My wife would tell me this beautiful story. But there's also something else, which is the theme that you're going to pursue tonight. And when we look at the part of the parsha that we're looking at, which is Eliezer's prayer to Hashem and request of Hashem that his mission to find the right bride for Yitzchak that Avram has sent him on is successful. But the theme that we're going to see, I think, is is also interfaces very nicely with the story I just told you from my wife. And that is, everybody needs a little bit of a sign that Hashem is pleased with them, that they're on the right path. You can't expect to have constant miracles, at least usually. However, the fact that Hashem sends you a sign every now and again, to, as it were, a smile from heaven, a little wink from Shemayim, is an encouragement that everybody needs. And we'll see in a second, that's really a major theme of part of the Parsha with Eliezer. Okay, so Eliezer is sent by Avram Avinu to find the right to his own family, and to find, because he's been told after Akedah Yitzchak, and when he was told to do Akedah Yitzchak, Yitzchak was already in his 30s, and he thought, I've not gotten married yet. Had I been told to go through with the execution of my own son, there would have been no children. And he regretted that. And therefore, at this stage, having heard that Rivka has been born, which is the concluding few psukim after Akedah Yitzchak, then the death of Sarah, and then we come to, as it were, Avram putting his what he considers to be perhaps a mistake, or something that he was lax about, right, and that is to find a bride for Yitzchak. Fine. So he sends Eliezer. So let's just read a little bit of that story. It's a well-known story. However, it's important for us to emphasize a couple of themes or parts of it, which are going to be extraordinarily crucial to understanding what's going on. So you remember, I'm sure, that when Avram tells Eliezer to go, it's two things. It's a don't and a do. Do go to my family. Let's take off my glasses, maybe quickly grab the beginning of this dialogue. But Avram Zokin Beyalim. Avram is old, comes with days. Hashem Berakat Avram Bakol. And Hashem had blessed Avram with everything. And Bakol, the rabbis say, indicates that he was blessed in everything. In particular, he'd now reached the level where he truly was the tzaddik that could be the founder of the Jewish people. He was the tzaddik who had conquered his Yetzer Hara. He was blessed with everything. Every aspect of his journey here, of his growth here, spiritual growth here, had been fulfilled and had blossomed. He'd even conquered his Yetzer Hara. V'yom Avram el avdoi zokin besai, and Avram said to his Eved, the zokin besai, B'kol asher loi, the person who ruled, Moshe B'kol asher loi, ruled over everything that was his. And Chazal say, here's an astonishing thing, that he too, Eliezer, had conquered his Yetzer Hara. He was the Zokin Besai. He was the elder of his house. And it doesn't mean, in the English translation, what does it say here? I think it says steward. I'm sure they're going to use the word steward here. Zokin Besai, servant. Oh, and Avram said to servant, okay, to the servant, the elder of his household. But that's totally misleading. Eliezer was Avram Avinu's outstanding Talmud. He was the true inheritor of his teacher's wisdom, and so he's really the Zokin Besov. He's the Chochem, the wise, the Talmud Chochem of Avram Avinu, his greatest disciple. And of course, he tells him to make an oath that he's got to go and find a bride for his son. Ki el artzi el mladri, in my land, that's the land he comes from, and the place I was born. And find and take there a bride for my son Yitzchak. Perhaps she'll not come with me. So he says, what happens if she's not going to come with me? Let's read about the English here. So it says, perhaps the woman does not want to follow me. Shall I take your son back to the land which you departed? And Avram gets very, very annoyed about this. No, you cannot take him with you under any circumstances. And if she doesn't do if you fail in your mission, even though you've tried, and she won't go with you, then that's that. Fine, you've tried your best. But under no circumstances, Yitzchak to leave Eretz Israel, and he's not going to Chutzlah, or it's not going to outside the land of Israel. Okay, so that takes us really to Eliezer's journey. He swears the oath, And really, Chazal say that really he was hinting that maybe Yitzhak could marry his daughter, and that would be a good shidduch. And that Avram makes it quite clear. But that's not going to be a good shidduch. It's only from his own family. And of course, Yitzhak marries his cousin, Rivka. And that's, of course, what's going to happen. But anyway, let's turn to the actual critical thing that we're going to be studying from the Alshich, and that is when he gets there. Now, I should point out that when he gets there, it's miraculous. That there wasn't a long journey. He had what's called kvitzas aderech. This occurs several times. You can find this in Bereshit. When the journey, you just set off on the journey, and the place arrives to you. Hashem either speeds it up, whatever the miracle is, the place, the destination you want to reach is immediately. You just start walking, and you're there already. But anyway, let's carry on and see exactly what happens. So let's start with, I think, positive test maybe. But Yosem Ebed as Yodai Tachas Yerech Avram, and the Ebed as Eliezer makes the blessing. Makes the Shavua, the oath, the Yishbaloi Aladober Hazan. He makes the oath that he won't indeed consider taking Yitzchak outside the land of Israel. But Yikach, sorry. V'yilach, V'yikach Ebed, I was right. V'yikach Ebed Asura Gemonim, and he takes 10 camels. There's a caravan of camels. Megamali Adonai from Avram's camels. V'yilach V'kol Tuv Adonai B'yodai, and he takes all the good of Avram in his hand, which is both the material and of course the spiritual, with him. V'yokam V'yilach Aram Harim. He goes to a place called Aram Harim. Eliezer no a place called Bachar. And then it says V'yiborach Hagamalim mechutz le'ir. He makes the camels kneel down. Must have seen that. Sit down is not quite right, but crouch down perhaps. Le'ir el ber hamayim, by the well. Le'es erev, towards evening. Le'es tzitz l'sha'abas, when the people drawing water from the well came out, probably after the hot day. They wait till it's cool, and then they come out, and you don't want to carry a big pitcher of heavy water when it's the sun's beating down. So at dusk is a good time, I suppose, when everything's very cool, to do work which is physically takes physical exertion. V'yomer, and then Eliezer offers up a prayer, or starts to talk to Hashem, and he says, "V'yomer Hashem Eloki Hashem Adoni Avram, Hashem, the God of my master Avram, Hakara no lefona hayom." Sorry, Hakre no lefona hayom. Hakri. Something Hakri, Lafona, before me today. What does Hakri mean? At this point, we have to turn to see what the Art Scroll translate that. So this is Posset Yud Base. Well, I should have told you, Kof Dalet, chapter 24, and it's Yud Base. And so what does this say? This is how the Art Scroll renders it. And he said, Hashem, God of my master Avram, may you so arrange it for me this day that you do kindness with my master Avram. So they're translating the word Ikori as arrange things. The Alshich is going to argue with that translation, and let's see. So anyway, we'll stick with it for now. And do a chesed with my master Avram. I'm standing by this well, and the daughters of the Anshi, the men of the city, are coming out to draw water. Now the girl that I say to her, Hate no kadech, put your pitcher, your jug, which they carried waters in jugs and clay jugs or pitchers on their shoulder. Take that kad, that's how they translate that. What do they call it? Please, a jug. They call it a jug. Okay, the kad from your shoulder. The one I say, take down from a bit extra so I can have some water to drink. But Omra, and she says, Shesei gam gamanecha, drink, and also your camels, Eshka, I will give to drink. That's the one. That will be the sign. That will be the sign that I need to know that that's the girl you have in mind for my master Yitzchak. And that's how I know that you've done chesed with my master. I'm going to read on a little bit further. And we're going to perhaps, I'll ask you the question now, but we'll forget it. This is the last question we're going to deal with, but I'm going to ask you it now. Before he'd even finished speaking to God, but in Rivka Yod says, Rivka comes out, Asher Yoda le Basuel, who had been born to Basuel ben Milka, the son of Milka, Ashes Nochor, who was the wife of Nochor, Ochi Avram. So she was the daughter of Basuel, and he was the ben Milka, Ashes Nochor. So Nochor was Avram's brother. The Kado, so therefore Avram's nephew. The Kado, and she had this picture, this jug thing, on her shoulder. Okay. Behenara Todis Mara Ma'oid. She was extremely beautiful, Basula. She was unmarried, no contact with a man. She was 3 years of age, according to Rashi, at this stage of her life. And the Ishlo Yoda Eneho Batamala Kada Batao. So she took the picture, she filled it from the well, and off she goes. But Yoratsa Ebedikrosa. Eliezer runs to meet her. Could you give me a little drink from your jug? But Thomas she said, Adoni. I said, drink, my master. But Tamahir Batarat Kado al Yudeho, the Dishko. And she takes it down and she gives him to drink from the jug of water. But Talcholishkosai, and when she's finished giving him enough water, when she poured enough water for him, but Tamar, Gamla Gamalech Alshich. Add in kilolashas. Now I will water your camels. And you know that's a big deal. Camels drink enormous amounts until they are completely sated. The Maya Batan, the Kada, and she goes, she fills up the water and she fills the camel as well. As she drinks, gives camels drink as well. Now here's the problem. The problem is, and we'll come back to that because that's really the end of the share. He said, Rabban Shem, I need a sign. The sign I would like is that the girl whom I say to her, let me have some water to drink. And she says, I'll give you to drink and I'll give you camels to drink. That's the one. And so that's Rivka. And Rivka is the mother of Yaakov. And Yaakov is the father of the whole of the Jewish people. But is she the wrong girl? Because the conditions that were stipulated by Eliezer have not been met. He said, the girl I say to, give me water to drink. And she says, I'll give you water to drink and I'll give the camels water to drink. So that's the one. But that's not what she said. She said to him, I'll give you water to drink. But, and after he finished drinking, then she said, and now I'll water your camels. But he stipulated it was in one sentence. If her reply was, I'll give you water to drink, your camels drink, that's the girl. But she didn't say that. She said, I'll give you water to drink. Full stop. Boom. After she finishes giving him water to drink, and he's sated, then she says, no, I'm going to give you camels. That's different. So was she the right girl after all? We're all in trouble if she's not. Anyway, I'm going to come back to that at the end. I want to go back to Eliezer and this idea here of his condition that he makes, the stipulation, the request for a sign, an omen might be the right word, from God. This is what now we've got questions to go into here in the Alshich. But the Alshich says at the beginning, before he gets to his questions, Eliezer had two fears. Here he is coming to ask this. Now, they don't know who he is. He's going to claim to be Avram's student. Although the Talmud says, Tainus, if I remember correctly, that that Eliezer's face reflected was an mirror image of Avram's face. I don't know if you know that, but very often people grow to look alike. It sounds a bit strange. I have a friend called Rabbi Jaffe, Avram Jaffe, he's the head of Manchester Lubavitch, a very old friend. And I once said in one of the shiurim which he popped in, or he heard me speaking, and I said how very often it is the case, and maybe you've noticed this yourself, very often it is the case that Hasidim of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, very often looked like him. I don't know. And I said this, I said, I'm not sure if this is the appropriate thing to say. And I said to him, I hope I'm not offending you, but I can't actually believe I am. In fact, I'm quite sure you'll find it the opposite. But you look so like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And he's not the only Lubavitch Chassid who looked like, the features, very distinctive features of the Rebbe, but they took it on as well. And sometimes one grows to look like somebody. It's a very strange phenomenon, one that I've noticed many times before. So whether it's a natural phenomenon or not, I'm just being too fanciful. I'm not sure, but certainly, as I'll say, in the case of Eliezer and Avram, and then remember, Avram had known him from a child, had brought him up, and he had grown to be, as it were, a reflection of Avram. We mentioned in one of our previous sharing, but ultimately, at the end of his life, Avram gives Eliezer permission to open his own yeshiva, to teach his masters, to teach Avram's Torah, fully convinced and fully confident that he will not deviate in any way from the teachings of Hashem Yisbarach that Avram has passed on. So he's a very, very great man, without any doubt whatsoever. And he looks like Avram Avinu. So that's something to bear in mind. So maybe, even though they've never seen him before, however, it would be important to point out that if he looks exactly like Avram, his claim of being Avram's servant would be borne out by his appearance, certainly to some degree. But his number one fear is that maybe they'll just say no. Well, I'm not letting her go with you. We're not. You just can't have her. Number two is that perhaps they'll say, yes, we believe you. We believe that Avram sent you. We believe that he's got a son called Yitzchak. We're really quite happy for our daughter to marry Yitzchak, but not giving her to a mere servant. We want to send somebody important, somebody who's not an Ebed, a free man. Get one of he's friendly with kings. Let him send a king along. So that's his two concerns. Maybe they won't let her go at all, or maybe they will let her go, but not to me. We're going to come back to that. Okay, so I think we could maybe look at the Alshich at this stage. At least when I was preparing this, that's what I wrote. Should be the next part of our journey, my little Waze map here, where we should go. And I'll read to you the 4 questions I think it would be interesting for us to consider, or the Alshich certainly thinks so. Although the Alshich asks, if I remember, 20, officially, because they're numbered here, 23 questions on the bit that we just read. However, as you'll see in a second when I read to you, some of these questions are divided into subcategories of 3 or 4 anyway. So there's about 40 questions. I think you will forgive me, I'm guessing, if I only give you a tenth of that. 4 questions, and that will lead us into some extremely interesting territory. So here's the questions. Number 1, Omra Hikora no. So this Hikora thing that we looked at before, which they said was, could you rate, what was, oh, I've forgotten now how the Art Scroll translated this. Let's go back to 4. Where was this? Good. Arrange it. That was the word. Arrange it. Can you arrange it? Arrange it. The Alshich not very happy with that translation. I think he's going to translate it as reveal. Can you reveal? Okay, can you reveal? Hikora, no. Can you reveal? No. What does that mean? But anyway, so the Alshich says, 1, Oma Hikora, no. Lama ze kino hadavar el mikra. Why is it that he's asking, can it be a revelation? Can you reveal something to me? And why not arrange like the Art Scroll say it? But Yom Hashem Elokei Hashem, sorry, but I keep saying this. But Yom Hashem Elokei Adoni Avram, the God of my master Avram, he kore no lefana hayon. Can you arrange things for me today? Could be what he said, but they also would say that would be a different word. Marich, that would be with an iron. What's this hikora? Well, I'll have to come back to that because it's going to be very, very critical. Question 2. Omer hayon. So hikora, would you arrange things for me today? Well, that's a bit ridiculous. When else is going to do it? So he says, Omer hikora no. Lama zakino hadavar el mikra. Question 1. Question 2. Omer hayon. Today. Yes, we don't say that. It's obviously today. And as we're on the subject, and this is where he starts throwing in sneaky side questions, additional questions. So our number goes from 23 up of number of questions. But Alpi Darhin and also El Omra Elokei Adonim Avram. Why do you say Elokei Adonim Avram? And I just say Elokei Hashemayim Va'aretz. Gimel, question 3. Omro Hini Anachi Nitzav. I'm standing by the well. Yes, we know that. The Torah has already told us that he's standing by the well. Remember, it says he comes to the well and he makes his camels lie down by the well, and then he turns around and says to God, God, I'm by the well. Well, Hashem knows where you are. So why does he have to say that? This are ki hari nemar shehi al ayin hamayim. He's already said he's there by the well. He's already told us that. Be masik v'yomahini benois ansha ir. And then he goes on and says, "Oh, the daughters of the city are coming out with the water." And then that's when he makes this proposal, asks for the sign from God. Okay, Dalet. Ich lo choshesh al chashash rabasinu. And then question number 4, says the Alshich, this whole request of Eliezer is troubling in the extreme. What does he say? He says, the girl that comes out, and I say to her that, give me some water to drink. She says, yes, and your camels, then that's the girl. Now, why that? Why is that important? And not only that, something else. Let me read to you. The Gemara says in Tainus, why wasn't he concerned that was a very, very poor test? Because if by stipulating the first girl I say to, and she replies with this portentous formula of words, yes, I'll give you to drink and the camels. The rabbi said that was loy kahugan. It wasn't correct. He asked this. That he made this. Asked for this as a condition. Shema tia chagaretz, a suma, a shivka. Well, maybe the first girl that come out would be crippled, or maybe she would be blind, or maybe she was a shivka. Maybe she wasn't. She was a servant girl, indentured slave, as they had in those days. It's too open-ended to. So, if the girl who says that's the one, well, maybe she will say that, and she's not the one. So, those are the 4 questions of the 40, which I think we're going to have a look at. Now, I think I have to break off from the Alshich for a second and give you a very interesting insight into the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon was, he was called the Chosid. Chosid is a madrega above tzaddik, by the way, as it says in the Silas Shisharmi, or the Ramchal explains. And even his great opponents, because he was there in the heart of the battle of the new nascent Hasidic movement, and his opponents, he was the leading opponent of the Hasidic movement, even though it was called the Chosid. But the Vilna Gaon was recognized even by many of my Lubavitch friends, going back to Lubavitch, because Lubavitch was they led the charge of the Hasidic movement, and therefore they bumped straight into the opposition to the Vilna Gaon. But many, even the Lubavitch problem, the Hasidic world in general, recognized that he was the greatest of all. In fact, in Lubavitch lore and history, that there's a general belief, stated many times, were it have been the case that the Baal Tanya and the Vilna Gaon had been able to meet, they were prevented from meeting by circumstances and people who were very keen that they shouldn't meet. Had that happened, they're quite convinced that the Mashiach would have come. But the Vilna Gaon was beyond our imaginationally brilliant. And to give you an example, this is going to take me off too much of a tangent, but anyway, there's a famous story told of somebody came to the Vilna Gaon who wanted to get smicha from the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon explained, his shamus, whom the fellow approached, explained the Vilna Gaon never gives smicha. And the fellow said, but it's so important to me, and it also pleading and begging. And the shamus said no, but eventually he wore the shamus down, so the shamus went to the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon said, but I never give smicha to anybody. I never ordain anybody a rabbi. He said, I know, I've told him 100 times, he's just not listening, he's driving me nuts. And said, okay, send him in. So in came the young man, and the Vilna Gaon said, how can I help you? And he explained he was hoping to smicha from the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon said, but I never give smicha to anybody. And the young man said, I know, but it was such an honor. He said, okay. He was carrying his Yori Dea under his arm. I just leap back here and get my Yori Dea, which I learned from when I got smicha in Geitza Yeshiva. I was tested by the Rav of Geitza, Betzalel Rakov. So here it is. I had it rebound because it's so precious to me. And my smichas and things falling out all over the place. So just let's see if I can turn the page right. So basically, he said to the young man, "Have you learnt it?" And the young man said, "Yes." And the Vilna Gaon said, "Do you know it?" And the young man said, "Yes." He said, "Well, open to the first page." And there is the first page of your idea. There's some stains on it. I don't know what that is. Anyway, once upon a time, I used to know this book off by heart, by the way. Anyway, but there you go. So the Vilna Gaon said to him, "Okay, how many alofim are there on the first page? How many letter alephs are there on the first page? And bases and gimels and damas." And the point was, the young man closed his idea, got up, and left. The point was that Vilna Gaon it wasn't a trick. The Vilna Gaon knew how many alephs there were on the front page, on the first page, how many bases, how many gimels, how many damas, how many hays, how many vaws. He saw the letters forward, the words forwards and backwards. He was the Vilna Gaon. He was beyond our perception. The general accepted opinion was that his soul was a soul from an early generation, from the generation of Rishonim, and that gives you an insight how their minds worked and the level that they were on. So that was the great Vilna Gaon. He couldn't, of course, give smicha to anybody because that would suggest that somebody was on a level like him to be worthy of a smicha, and nobody was. He was the great Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon never slept in a bed, as far as I know. He simply, if he was tired, would put his head down in his arm, sleep for a very short space of time, 10 minutes or so, wash his hands, and then just carry on learning. There was somebody who came to see the Vilna Gaon, some rabbi who came to see the Vilna Gaon and explained that he was trying to emulate the great Vilna Gaon in this extraordinarily extreme regime of, just total commitment to learning and, just effectively never getting up from the holy books that you're studying, hardly ever. And the Vilna Gaon said, very importantly, don't do that. I know my koichas, I know my strengths, I know my potential. I know I can do this. You can't. But the fellow carried on and died young, died very shortly after that. The point is, you've got to know who you are, and what you can do, and what your strengths are. And of course, the corollary, I think in Americans say corollary, which sounds a bit like a heart attack. The corollary of that, you British pronounce it properly, is that know where your strengths don't lie. The Vilna Gaon knew his strengths and could do this, and he couldn't. And of course, sadly, that was borne out. That's the story of the Vilna Gaon, and I think it's an important thing. It's exactly the theme that's going to run through this. Eliezer wants his son to marry Avram. Avram said no. If you remember in our share for just a couple of weeks ago, when Avram is so determined that he has to have a son, and the question we asked again from the Alshich is, why couldn't Eliezer be the son? There are many great people, including the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who you could hardly say that he didn't influence his movement and give the legacy of his Torah and his Chassidus to his Chassidim to carry through the generations. So he didn't have any children to carry on. His disciples will carry it on. So why couldn't Eliezer be that disciple? And as we explained at the time, because if you remember, I told you that if I was to choose one thing that makes Jews unique, it's not that we do science better than anybody else, that we do medicine better than anybody else, or even that we do chesed better than anybody else, although I would argue that we do, is that we do God better than anybody else. We do our belief in Hashem better than anybody else, because, as if you remember from that share, if any nation has got a reason to not do God well, I think it would probably be the Jewish people who suffered 2 destroyed temples, an expulsion from Israel, Spain, England, Portugal, France, etc., pogroms, crusades, Inquisition, and of course Holocaust. And yet we are still here. That stiff-necked factor that God, Hashem, recognizes and identifies after the Egel Azov. Of course, a terrible thing when it's done wrong, but a great thing when it's done right. Avram needs somebody who has got his DNA and is going to do God well, even through the toughest of times. He needs his own son. Of course, with that in mind, makes Akedah Yitzchak from last week's Parsha even more dramatic. than perhaps we would have imagined it from before. But you have to know your Madriga, and Eliezer wants his daughter to marry Yitzchak. No, that's not your Madriga. It's a bit like the conversation between the Vilna Gaon and this rabbi. I don't know who the rabbi was. It's very similar to the conversation of Avram and Eliezer. No, your daughter can't marry my son, and no, you can't take my son outside. He's got to marry into my family where that gene, particularly in the female side of the family, is very, very strong and very recognizable indeed. Okay, so let's get an idea a little bit more of Eliezer's spiritual level. And then I think we've got our 4 questions, and then we can move on and see what the Alshich has to say. In page Kuf Tzadi of, this is my Alshich here, he says the following thing. I'll read a little bit to you. You're talking about Avram Zokin. When it tells us that Avram was Zokin, which is how this whole story starts, Avram Zokin, Baba Yamin, he was old, and he came with years, and basically that's when he realizes he's got to get his son married. Avram Zokin, Baba who ki bo hakosav l'seis tam lama asa Avram shlichus because al yidei avdoi. And it gives you an idea as to why he chose his servant to carry out this important mission of finding a bride for his son. And not through anybody, the law and not through anybody else. You could ask the question, why not himself? Rabbi Dessler says, because Abram knew, and this is big, Abram knew when it came to his own son, he wasn't Abraham. He wasn't the great Abram. Nobody is objective when it comes to their own child. You need an objective eye, but that's Rabbi Dessler's approach. And he's not worried about sending his son's bride to be in the care of an Eved, where all sorts of he might himself grab her and take her as a bride. Because if he's faithful, but it would certainly not be covetic and be honorable to send a mere servant to collect your son's bride. Well, there Avram says Avram Zokin. So first of all, Avram couldn't go far, couldn't go that distance. He was an old man already. And he's not afraid that he's not afraid of sending his new daughter-in-law with another man, and that anything might go wrong, for a very simple reason, and that is he was a tzaddik. Because Hashem had blessed Abram with everything. What does that mean by everything? Who based on a neman? Hashem kenoida. Begam lo chosh mebnei shechoshed or mebnei kavod. Ki hu omer elavo al avdoi. Because it wasn't that he was just his eved; he was his outstanding talmud. And as Abram had conquered his Sahara, Eliezer had conquered his Sahara. So he was not in the slightest concerned. And as I said before, and he looked like Avram Avinu, and he was the great Talmud Chacham. And he was a tzaddik, as we're going to see in a second. Okay, now we've got to read a little bit further. But Eliezer, as we've already seen, has got ambitions. He's got ambitions for greatness. For his son, can maybe marry. His daughter can maybe marry Yitzchak. Beyond that which Avram is willing to consider, not out of cruelty, but he knows the level of Eliezer, and indeed, as I pointed out in the previous Alshich in the second series, he wasn't able, neither Eliezer or any of Avram's converts maintained that belief and that faith, or were able to carry it on to the next generation. Avram knows that. No matter how great he is, it would be a transient greatness, and therefore transience is when we need something which is perpetual. Transience is a contradiction to that. And so therefore it can't be him. But that's from Avram's point of view. But from Eliezer's point of view, he still has great ambitions. He still wants to achieve greatness. And let's see what happens here. So let me read to you what the Alshich says. after his 24, inverted in brackets, probably a lot more questions. So he says, very explained, and this is jumped in the middle, but the Alshich already addressed this previously. He says, Avram was telling Eliezer, when he says you can't have my son marry your daughter and various other things, he gently puts it to him, don't think that you and I are the same. We're not the same. Right? I'm the Vilna Gaon, you are this rabbi. You're a rabbi, you're a great person, but you don't have what this particular job, this role requires. My relationship with God is that He Himself, Hashem, listen to this. Ki halo im hayisi hoylech ba'atzmi hoya hu yisborach ba'atzmoi apol bi. If I walk alone on my own in the world, opposing everything else, then not only that, Hashem walks with me. Because I did that, me to connect, me to measure for measure, then Hashem, He walks with me. And that means, Gehu asher ba'atzmoi lokach me beis avi. Because that's when the posuk. Here's an interesting posuk. If we look back at posuk Zion in Kof Dalet, posuk Zion says, quickly flip the page over. Yes, when he's talking to him, when he's telling him of the journey he has to make, and posuk Zion says, Hashem Elokei Hashemayim Asher Lokachni, the Almighty, who took me beis avi. Hashem Himself took me from my father's house and brought me to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem did that. Of Eretz Amaladson, from the place of my birth. Asher Diber Loi, Asher Nishba Loi, Lamor Zalecha, Etan Esaretz. And he said, He will give me this land. And He will send His angel for you. For me, it was Hashem Himself who took me on the journey, who escorts me on the way. Wow. But for you, it will be a malach. Now, I wish I was in the level of malach would escort me on the way. But we'll see in a second, Eliezer wanted more. He wanted Hashem to show him the way. Hashem directly. So let's see if we think about this. I'm sorry if you're watching this video. I have, for some reason, an itchy eye. So I'm going to rub it a little bit. If it looks very red, don't worry. I shall bathe it shortly after the shear. Anyway, so he says, Hashem Himself, He took me from my father's house. You, of course, you're my great servant, you're my great disciple. And Hashem will send you one of His angels. Quite a salute. One of His own angels will come to escort you on the journey. Which is exactly the pasuk that we said. Avram says Hashem was going to send one of His angels. But Kenhu, and that's exactly what happened. But the Medrash says not just one, but two angels. And the journey to collect Rivka, there was two angels. One, because each angel has is tasked for one mission. One to escort him and protect him on the journey. And the other one, whose job is to make sure that Rivka wants to come, that he's going to help and guarantee. And if we had time to go through the Alshich, you will see that actual fact Rivka's brother and father planned to kill Eliezer, keep all the money which was sent as a dowry, and kill him. But the Malach stopped that happening. But that's too big for our time here tonight. Alkin, kasher bol bezeh. Therefore, when he comes to make this test or offer, ask Hashem for these conditions, asher azeh lo nisan lo malach. That wasn't part of the deal. It was the malach to get Rivka to come, and the malach to protect him. But he himself makes, as it were, or asks for a sign, which is not part of his instructions. Not what the angels were told to do. Now he's hesitant about this. But listen to what he says here. I think this in the Alshich is very, very interesting. Because even people who are at the highest possible level are still people, and human psychology still is how we work, how we think. So he says to himself, what level was my master Avram on? Lo yidamonu melahakra Elokei Adoni Avram. Avram is in such a level that even the Almighty, the creator of the entire universe, is happy to have his name associated with Avram. Elokei Abraham, of course, as we say in our blessings. And that shows that God considers Avram to be so worthy that he will, as it were, connect openly with Avram. Okay, if Altihi no Medrigosi, you read this Medrigosi Kokach, my level, in comparison, I'm nothing. Wow, how did I fall? Efo el Tehi no Medrigosi, you read this Medrigosi Kokach. How can my Midrash be so far away? And I'm his outstanding Talmud. I'm his chief chassid. And I'm nowhere near him. Hashem himself, I get a malach. I understand that's great, but a malach compared to Hashem, that's nothing. And he gets Hashem's personal escort. Wow. Am I so low down that Hashem could not listen to me? And if you say that it's because of what I say is inappropriate, it's inappropriate to make conditions or to ask for an omen or a sign like this, so how about if my request is that you will speak to me, you will appear to me. Now we get the Alshich translation here. Reveal yourself to me. The translation was, I keep forgetting how because I don't like it, that's why I keep forgetting. What was the Art Scrolls translation of this? Arrange things. No. Reveal yourself to me. You, Hashem, escorted Avram. Reveal yourself to me. Now, of course, Hashem escorts all of us. We just don't see it. But Avram saw it, and that's a huge chizuk. I would request, says Eliezer, that you reveal yourself to me as well. And that's a big ask. I think you would agree. Tell me, please, just once. And that's why it's Hayom. The question was, why does it say, to go back to the pasuk, beyond Hashem at Avram, Avram, Hikra no lefonai, Kara lefonai. I'm just making sure I'm pronouncing that right. Kof Daled Yud Beis. And he says, let's read this to you. Yeah. Vayom Hashem Elokei Adoni Avram, Hakri. I was thinking Hakri. It means reveal yourself. Reveal yourself to me now. To be Hakri. No. Hayom. Just today. How about that? I don't have to see you all the time, but I need, as it were, to be revealed. Like you're with me. You're with me, Hashem. No, Malach, you're with me. Just once. And incidentally, as the Alshich is going to go on, it's just a nightfall, as the pasuk said. So this day's nearly over. So just for a few seconds until it's nightfall and the day's gone. Please reveal yourself to me. It's the ambition of tzaddik. It's an ambition for spiritual greatness. And why not have the sights the very highest, if just for a few seconds? And maybe the Vilna Gaon would have said to that rabbi, okay, you can do that I'll let you do it tonight, and then after that, call off. Anyway, so that's what he wants. And that's exactly what it says. It's only for a few seconds, etc. And since when they came on the journey from Avram's, when they left Eretz Yisrael, boom, they were there. Somehow they managed to traverse that 1,000 miles or whatever it was in a second. He saw it was a day of Chayin, a day of an Ace Lassos, it's called, a special time, a special an indication that Hashem is on your side. So at this point, Rabbanu Shalom, please let me see you. Not let me see you, that's our prophet, but let me have a sign. Give me a sign you're there. And if it's only you only do it for Avram, he need gam ata asa chesed im adonil Avram. And therefore, if it's only for that, but you do it for Avram, okay, I get that. So do it for Avram. Because truly, by revealing himself to me, it's really for him, because ultimately for him is good, because I want to make sure I get the right girl. Because it fits, because Abram did mitzvahs himself, and not through a shaliach. For example, when the Malachim appeared, he doesn't know the Malachim, but when these Arabs turned out after the Bris Milah, if you remember that, then Abram himself runs to get the cattle and checks the cattle to prepare the meat for them. He could have got servants, he had hundreds of servants, but he wanted to do it himself. And therefore, Mida Keneged Mida, and Hashem looks after Abram himself, not through a shaliach, not through a malach. Abram ran to the flock, to the herd. Gam asa ata imoy midas keneged midas, do the same thing. And that is a kin hoyo ki hikare Hashem lefonav k'mamarom, Hashem appear to me. K'mamra echad anachi b'derech nachnein Hashem basi achi adoni. And that's what happened. Here's the big thing. He did do that. He did do that. And that's why you see in Posuk Kov Zion, when he is convinced that Rivka is the right girl and she says the right things, or as I said to you at the beginning, doesn't quite, but we'll come back to that in a second. Then he turns around in Kov Zion and says the following thing. It says, Vayama Baruch Hashem Elokei Adoni Avram. Blessed is, he's found the right girl, my master Avram, the God of Master Avram. Asher lo oza b'chasto, he hasn't forgotten his chesed. V'amitoi me'im Adoni anachi b'derech macheni Hashem, and I am on the derech which Hashem led me, not an angel, not an angel. Now, very quickly, the question is, remember the Alshich says, what's he doing? It says he's standing by the well. We knew that already. You see, it seems to be a bit of a chutzpah. It's the girl that comes out, and she's got the thing, and he gives all these conditions. And then the question was, but what if it's the wrong girl? He said, no, I'm standing at the well. The girls are already come out. That was the condition. I'm already seeing these girls. The Yom Hashem Avram. Ikare no lefona hayom ba'asa chesed. I'm standing on the chaninotzav al einamayim ubenois anshe ha'ir yotzas l'shov mayim. And the daughters benois, that's the daughters, not anybody else, not maidservants or anything like that. Daughters are coming out of the Anshi, and Anshi is a Hebrew word for the choshev ones, the most important ones, like Besuel and Lovan, whose daughter is Avram Sami, whose daughter is probably the one that I want. Then I see them already. The question was, how can you make that condition? What if the girl's blind? What if the girl's limp? I can see them already. I know it's not that. No, the only thing I need for you, Rabban Hashem, is to give me the sign that she'll say the right words. And then I know you're with me on the derech, which ultimately he was. And in that you see a very important message. I think we all need signs that we're on the right track. And if you remember the story I told you at the beginning of this year, that beautiful story of my wife, just from, I think, an hour and a half ago, she was so moved by this. When you see Hashem in your life, and I think we all do, particularly for those of us who look, and then you see Hashem, and then you just think, wow, it's such a chizuk. And it doesn't have to be that you see him all the time. It's just that when you occasionally get little nods, it's the encouragement you need to carry on the journey, because particularly when the times get a little bit rough. That's the story of Eliezer. Eliezer is in this request that he makes, which the Talmud says, surely it's a bit of a chutzpah, surely he asked the wrong thing. But according to the Alshich, it was only the one thing he wanted. Really, could you please, just for one day, for 1 second, once in my life, I would be so, humbled's not the right word, but you get the idea. If only I could have a glimpse of you guiding my life. It's something we all want, something we all need. But remember what the Ramban says at the end of Parshas Boy. He says that so many of the mitzvahs we say in the Torah are predicated, are predicated on the statement that Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. This is remembering the going out from Egypt. That reminds us of going out from Egypt. Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the Ramban says to him there, because the sort of huge, enormous miracles, famous miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim don't happen all the time. In fact, only once. Then we keep reminding ourselves of them, because the big mitzvahs, Remind us of the little mitzvahs that happen all the time. And this is the language of the Ramban is this Yisod Kol HaTorah, and that's the fundamental of the whole of the Torah. The little miracles. Of course, the little miracles, because they're little, we have to look to see them. How many times can you expect to see them? Well, 3 times a day in the Amida, Shakras, Mincha, and Marav, we say that only Sekel should be called only one. And for the miracles are with us every day. You see, you really have to look to see. And Eliezer's Madriga, once in his life, Hashem would personally lead him, and he could see that. But I think we can all see Hashem leading us in our life, maybe not at that level, as long as we look. But let's go back to the question I opened with, and we can finish our Alshich for this week on the Parsha. And that is the following thing. I said to you that he said to Hashem, the girl that says, I'll give you water to drink and I'll give you camels to drink, that's the girl. But as I pointed out, she didn't say that. Does that mean to say, therefore, she was the wrong girl and the whole of the Jewish people out? We've told ourselves that we are the Jewish people? If that was the wrong girl? And that says, no, of course it was the right girl. But she didn't say the words. Of course she didn't say the words. Consider what we said just now about the spiritual level of Eliezer. A reflection of Avram, his greatest Talmud, etc., etc. However, having said all, and of course he saw Malachim all the time, by the way, in his household. And so Eliezer's relationship with Avram is the same as Hagar's relationship with Sarah. Hagar was Sarah's greatest Talmidah, and when she is thrown out, or threatened to be thrown out, but she actually went and didn't change her mind, and Amalek comes along and says, Hagar, what are you doing here? Now, I don't know how you would react if Amalek appeared to you, but I would sort of go, ah! And she goes, oh, well, it's just because I've been thrown out because of blah, blah, blah. And she's used to seeing Malachim, and so is he. So here's, I can't conceive of the Madrig of Eliezer. And this is what the Alshich says here. So she actually said, she finishes a tackle, and then she said, I'll give to your camels. Not what he said. Listen to this. Zuharos derech eretz lebilti omer loy shichas shasei adoni begam legmalecha esher. She was showing him as a 3-year-old girl that what you said was not right. There's a refinement of speech. Rabbi Dessa's got a whole essay on Adonis Adibur. Refinement of speech. How you speak, it reflects what's inside, or rather what's inside demands that you speak or controls how you speak. He said, the girl that says to me, I'll give you to drink and then I'll give you camels to drink. You don't equate a human being and an animal. You don't draw a comparison. Human beings are Akim. Animals, there's so many mitzvahs in the Torah, halakha in the Torah, how to protect animal welfare, no cruelty to animals, etc., etc., etc. Now we know all that. So we look after animals. But at the end of the day, an animal's an animal, and a human being is Akim. You don't equate them. That's just not Jewish sensitivity. It's not Jewish refinement. And she knew that, and he didn't. He slipped up there. And this 3-year-old girl from that family of Avram Avinu's, that family has an unbroken chain all the way back to Adam Arisha. They've got sophistication of dibur, of speaking, even as a 3-year-old girl, which Eliezer, who's an old man with a white beard, spent his whole life learning from Avram, he still didn't pick that one up. She changed it because she knew, I don't want to draw a parallel or comparison between a human being and an animal. And that's why she waited until he'd finished drinking. And then she said that. As a 3-year-old, she was on a greater level than him. Wow. So, Baruch Hashem, we are the Jewish people. Rivka was the correct bride for Yitzchak, so you don't have to worry. And their child Yaakov and his sons, our progenitors, create Klal Yisrael. But a very interesting insight into Eliezer. And also, I think it's important to have ambition to reach greatness. That's clear. But it's also important to look for the signs, because really, they're there all the time, as long as you're looking for them. I look forward to speaking to you and learning Alshich with you next week. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a very good week.